The rain hit harder than her footsteps. Mara ran, her breath hitching in the cold air, every inhale slicing her lungs like glass. The pine trees flanked her on both sides, rising like obsidian towers in the dark, their branches clawing at her arms as she pushed through. She didn't stop to wipe the blood from her cheek or the tears that mingled with the rain. All she could hear was her own heartbeat pounding in her ears and the guttural growls closing in behind her. They had followed her. She wasn't supposed to survive the fall. She wasn't supposed to escape the ritual, but she had, and now the forest, ancient and watching, held its breath. Somewhere between panic and instinct, she stumbled into a ravine and slid down its moss-covered walls. Her elbow slammed into a root, jarring her enough to scream, but she swallowed the sound. No light, no path, just her and the darkness. She didn't understand what she'd seen back at the cabin. She didn't understand why those men, if they were even still men, had clawed at each other like animals under the full moon. Why one of them had turned his golden eyes on her and growled her name like a curse. But Mara knew one thing: they weren't human. Her ankle gave out, and she collapsed near the base of an old tree, its twisted trunk warped like a sentinel carved by madness. She pressed her back to it, trembling, hand clutching the satchel still slung across her chest. Inside, wrapped in blood-stained cloth, was the mark, a silver medallion with the crest of a wolf and a crown, something she'd stolen. In a split-second panic, a roar tore through the air, closer now. Not a human voice, not even close. "I didn't mean to take it," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I didn't know what it was." The forest answered with silence. Then, a snap of branches. She tensed. A figure emerged from the tree line, massive and soaked, his shoulders heaving with every breath. For a heartbeat, she couldn't even register what she was seeing. He moved like a beast, but stood like a man, tall, broad, wild. Rain slicked down his bare chest, the tattoos on his arms writhing like shadows. His dark hair clung to his face, and his eyes, they were gold, like molten sun, like the monster from the cabin. Mara scrambled back, but he didn't follow. He just stared at her, eyes narrowed, muscles taut. She felt something deep inside her lurch at the sight of him, as if her soul recognized a name her mind didn't know. "Give it back," he growled. His voice was deep, rough, like gravel over thunder. As she looked at her satchel, "I didn't know what it was. You were going to kill me." He didn't blink. Rain poured around them, but the air between them was fire. "You entered a sacred ritual. You stole from my bloodline. I ran because you were killing someone," she shouted back, trembling. "I saw what you were. You're not human." His jaw clenched. Then, he stepped forward. She reached behind her for a rock, her fingers closing around the cold weight of it. "Don't," he said, a warning low in his throat. "Don't come closer." "I wasn't going to mark you," he muttered, his voice suddenly strange, conflicted. "You were never meant to be part of this." "I didn't ask to be part of anything," she snapped. I just wanted to leave this cursed town." That's when she noticed it, his hand clutched against his side, blood spilling down through his fingers. "You're hurt," she said before she could stop herself. He laughed once, bitter. "You think that matters?" Mara stared. He was breathing, heavier now, staggering slightly. Whatever strength he'd used to chase her, it was fading. And yet, something in her gut screamed not to trust him. "Stay back," she warned again, but it came out softer this time. "You can't run from this girl," he muttered. "The medallion chose you. You carry the mark now. Whether you like it or not." "What does that mean?" she whispered. But he didn't answer. His body buckled and he dropped to one knee, bracing himself against the tree. For a long moment, they just stared at each other, prey and predator, but something more. Something ancient, as if the storm itself had summoned them both here to rewrite something fated long ago. "My name is Kale," he rasped. "And you just ruined everything." Mara's heartbeat skittered. She didn't know it yet, but this moment, this storm, this forest, this man was going to unravel everything she thought she knew about her world, and herself, and Kale. He was the one destined to either destroy her, or burn the world for her. The morning after the storm broke with eerie stillness, the kind that came after chaos, where every bird and branch held its breath like the world itself feared what would come next. Mara stirred on the forest floor, her fingers stiff from the cold, her body curled beneath the broad roots of the twisted tree. Her eyes snapped open, heart thudding in her chest. Gone. Kale was gone. She jolted upright, brushing leaves from her tangled hair, scanning the woods with sharp, darting glances. All that remained of the strange encounter was the blood on the tree, bark, and the distinct indentation where his knees had buckled. Part of her had half believed she'd imagined it all. The growling, the golden eyes, the pain in his voice, the word marked echoing like an old curse. She looked down at her satchel, still there. She pulled it closer and opened the flap, carefully. Unwrapping the cloth to reveal the medallion, the silver wolf crest gleamed even in the muted dawnlight. It didn't glow, didn't move, didn't hum with power, but something about it felt heavy, like it didn't belong in her world. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't go back to town. They'd seen her, they'd know, and if Kale's warning was true, you carry the mark now. Her fingers grazed her collarbone unconsciously. There was nothing there, no physical sign. But something in her chest pulsed faintly, like her heartbeat had changed its rhythm. She rose to her feet, wincing as she put weight on her twisted ankle. Somewhere in the distance, a crow called out. The forest no longer felt empty, it felt like it was watching. By mid-afternoon, Mara made her way to the edge of the woods, near the old logging road that hadn't seen traffic in decades. She followed it until she reached a rusted-out sign, Wolfton for miles, her hometown. If she couldn't go back, she'd at least try to find shelter nearby. The wind carried the scent of pine and something faintly metallic. Blood. No, she turned. A low growl rolled through the trees. Mara froze, her breath caught in her throat. A pair of eyes gleamed from the shadows, feral, orange red. Another one. It wasn't Kale. This wolf was massive, pitch black with jagged scars slicing down one side of its flank. Foam dripped from its mouth as it stalked toward her, step by deliberate step. Its head was lowered, muscles coiled to strike. Mara backed away, stumbling over a root, her heart jackhammering. I don't have anything you want, she breathed, but it didn't care. It lunged. Before she could scream, a blur of movement crashed into the beast, sending it tumbling into the underbrush with a snarl. Two bodies collided, one wolf, one man, Kale. This time, he wasn't just wild, he was unleashed. Shirtless, barefoot, his eyes ablaze with gold fire as he tackled the creature, his hands morphing mid-motion, clawed, animalistic. His entire form shimmered between man and beast as if his body couldn't decide which he was. Mara stumbled back behind a tree as the two shifters fought, teeth snapping, fists flying, growls echoing like thunder. She watched in frozen horror, torn between fear and awe. Kale moved with lethal precision, dodging the other wolf strikes and landing brutal hits that cracked ribs and sent fur flying. With a final, sickening crunch, Kale slammed the rogue's head against a stone, and the creature whimpered once before vanishing into the shadows, limping and broken. Silence. Kale staggered upright, blood dripping from a split in his brow. You followed me, Mara said, voice trembling. He didn't answer. His chest rose and fell in harsh gasps, muscles twitching with leftover adrenaline. She could see it in him now, the way his body was made for war, for survival. He wasn't fully human. Not anymore. Maybe he never had been. You shouldn't have run, he said hoarsely. I didn't have much choice, she shot back. He stepped closer, but his posture was less aggressive now, tired, guarded. Who was that? She asked. A rogue, exiled, drawn to the mark. You mean this? She lifted the medallion from her satchel. He flinched. Put it away. It calls to them. You still haven't told me what it is. Kale's eyes darkened. It's a blood token, an ancient bond forged by the first shifter king. It marks heirs and mates. Her mouth went dry. Mates? It shouldn't have chosen you, he said, almost to himself. You're human. It doesn't make sense. She looked down at the medallion, suddenly afraid to touch it. So what happens now? Kale's jaw tightened. Now I have to keep you alive, Mara scoffed. You tried to kill me last night. I didn't know the mark had bonded. His voice dipped into something softer, more dangerous. Once it does, hurting you would hurt me. She blinked. That's insane. He smiled without warmth. Welcome to my world. Thunder rumbled in the distance again, faint but growing. Kale looked toward the horizon with a grimace. They'll come for you now. The others. Once the Alpha Council learns the token chose a human. Mara shook her head, overwhelmed. No, I'm not staying in this madness. I'm leaving town, getting far away from this. Kale's voice hardened. You can't run from magic or fate. You're bound now. I don't care. He stepped forward again, and this time she didn't move away. His eyes met hers, intense and unreadable. You should. Because the next time a rogue finds you, I might not be there to stop it. A long pause hung between them. Mara finally asked, quieter, why did you come back for me? Kale's expression faltered, just for a second. Because I felt it. When you screamed, something deep inside her clenched. The road behind her felt like the last thread tying her to her old life, but Kale's eyes, they were the future. She hadn't asked for but couldn't ignore, and the mark on her soul was already burning. Mara hadn't meant to follow him. After the rogue attack, Kale had stalked deeper into the forest without a word, jaw clenched and eyes burning gold again. He hadn't offered help, hadn't asked if she was okay, he simply expected her to follow, like some unspoken bond had already written their next steps. Maybe it had. Now, she walked several paces behind him, her ankle throbbing with every step. The cursed medallion tucked tightly into the folds of her jacket. Kale hadn't turned around once since they'd left the clearing. His presence was like a storm just ahead of her, tense, brooding, powerful. The forest around them was alive with sound, but none dared challenge his path. Where are we going? She asked finally. To the edge of neutral territory. That tells me nothing. Kale stopped so abruptly she nearly collided into his back. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. You want answers? Fine. We're heading to a safe house. It's where I stay when I'm not dealing with pack matters. Mara crossed her arms. So you're not just some wild thing running through the woods, tearing people apart? His jaw twitched. Depends who you ask. She couldn't help. The next words. And what would they say about me? That I'm your prisoner now? No, his voice dropped low. They'd say you're my weakness. The air thickened. Mara's pulse fluttered, uncertain whether from fear or something far worse, curiosity. She looked away quickly, pretending to focus on the trees. I don't belong in your world. You didn't choose it, he agreed. But the bond did. Explain it to me, she said, louder now. Stop speaking in riddles and bloodlines and fate. What is this bond? Kale's shoulders rose and fell with a sigh. You want the truth? The medallion is one of 3 relics tied to the blood. Oath of the First Alpha. It chooses a vessel, not just anyone. Someone with a soul capable of anchoring a shifter to humanity. Someone the wolf sees as salvation. Her breath caught. You think I'm your salvation? No. He said too quickly. Then quieter. The wolf might. They resumed walking. Mara's mind spun. A soul capable of anchoring him. She didn't feel like a soul. She felt like a fracture, a girl, running from her past, from betrayal, from silence. What could a creature like him possibly need from her? But something about the way he'd looked at her, how he'd thrown himself between her and the rogue without hesitation, gnawed at her resolve. The safe house looked nothing like she expected. Nestled in a hollow of thick pine, the cabin was small, weathered, but sturdy. The front porch sagged a little. There were claw marks on the railing, like the ghosts of previous nights still clung to the wood. Kale opened the door and stepped aside, letting her pass. Inside, the scent of pine and ash greeted her, along with faint traces of dried blood. The furniture was sparse, a worn couch, a stone fireplace, a table with old maps and knives scattered across it. No electricity? She asked. Kale smirked faintly. Power lines don't survive long in pack territory. You mean you live off the grid in a murder shack? Better than living in a lie. That shut her up. He disappeared into another room, emerging with a wrapped bundle of herbs and a clean cloth. Sit, he ordered gently. I'm fine. You're limping. I said I'm into strides. He was in front of her, eyes locked on hers. Sit, please. The word hung oddly between them. She relented, sinking into the couch with a sigh. He knelt before her, lifting her leg with unexpected care and beginning to clean the scrapes along her ankle. The cold sting of antiseptic made her flinch, but Kale's grip remained steady. She studied his face while he worked the sharp lines of his jaw, the scar slicing through his brow, the tension in his jaw. There was something noble and haunted in him, like a king in exile. Why did you say I'm your weakness? She asked softly, his hands stilled. Kale looked up at her, and for once, he didn't shield his expression. His voice dropped to a murmur. Because ever since the mark chose you, my instincts have gone silent. What does that mean? My wolf. He tapped his chest. He speaks, guides, hungers. But since you appeared, he only says one thing, protect her. At all costs. Mara swallowed. That sounds like obsession. Not affection. Maybe. But it's more than that. My kind, we don't fall easily. We bond for life. And the blood token doesn't choose lightly. You said it shouldn't have chosen me. Kale nodded. You're not one of us. There's no recorded case of a human surviving the Mark's bond. It should have killed you. Mara stiffened. Then why didn't it? That's the question, isn't it? That night, she lay on a narrow cot in the safe house, staring at the ceiling while Kale sat on the porch, silent and still. The forest outside whispered ancient things, crickets, all wings, rustling leaves, but her ears strained only for his footsteps. Everything in her life until this moment had been predictable. The same dead-end job, the suffocating hometown, the betrayal by the one man she thought she could trust. And now this feral, cryptic protector and the bond that shouldn't exist. She reached beneath her shirt and touched the silver medallion again. It burned slightly against her skin, never enough to hurt, just enough to remind her it was alive. A presence, a curse, a promise. And in the next room, that same burn lived in Kale. She turned on her side, unable to sleep. Her thoughts spinning with questions she couldn't ask, not yet, but she would, because something told her this story had only just begun unraveling, and she was no longer just a girl who stumbled into the woods. She was part of something bigger, and someone out there didn't want her to survive it. The fire crackled in the stone hearth, its glow licking the aged walls of the cabin, casting flickering shadows that danced like spirits caught in a trance. Though the flames burned steadily, the chill in the air refused to fade, clinging to Mara's bones like something unnatural more than cold. A sense of quiet dread still hovered after the rogue attack. She sat curled on the edge of a worn leather armchair, Kale across from her, his large frame hunched forward as he stitched a jagged wound along his ribs with practiced, brutal efficiency. Blood trickled lazily down his side, mingling with older scars that webbed across his torso like a map of violence. Mara couldn't stop staring at one in particular, a diagonal scar, thick and ugly, carved from his collarbone to just above his heart. It didn't look like the others, no surgical neatness, no organized slice from battle. It looked vengeful. How did you get that one? She asked before she could think better of it, her voice hesitant but unable to hide her curiosity. Kale's golden eyes flicked up, catching hers. For a second, the air between them stilled. She half expected him to ignore the question or change the subject like he had earlier, but instead, he answered. It was a punishment, he said flatly. From my father. Mara's breath hitched. The words landed like stone. For what? For showing mercy. He finished the final stitch with a sharp jerk and set the needle down beside a stained cloth. The way he said it without flinching, without pride, sent shivers down her spine. I was 17, he went on, voice low, distant. We found a rogue on our land, barely shifted, terrified. My father ordered me to kill him in front of the others, said it would prove I was ready to lead. His jaw tightened. But I couldn't do it. The boy looked more like prey than predator. Mara swallowed hard, her fingers curling around the blanket draped over her knees. So, your father did that to you? She whispered, pointing subtly to the scar. Kale nodded. Clawed me himself. Said hesitation was the same as betrayal. Said pain would teach me where words failed. He exhaled, slow and hard. That scar was my first lesson in becoming an alpha. It was the first time Mara heard bitterness lace his voice. The cabin was silent, save for the wind howling faintly outside and the fire's soft hiss. She glanced around the room now that her shock had dulled. Rough wooden walls, minimal furniture, a faint scent of pine smoke, and something more primal like earth after rain. Wild and uncontainable. This was his den, she realized. Not just a hideout, but a place where the wolf in him could breathe. Did you ever see that rogue again? She asked. Kale looked into the fire. Yes, months later. He came back, older, stronger. He tried to protect me when my father exiled me from the pack. Her throat tightened. Did he survive? A pause. No. The single word was enough. Mara felt something shift in her. She was used to scars, hers just weren't visible. But Kale's wounds, both old and fresh, weren't just about survival. They told of choices, of refusal to become what others demanded. She stood slowly, crossing to where he sat, her eyes never leaving the pale ridge of his scar. Her fingers hovered inches from his chest. May I? Kale looked up at her, his expression unreadable, then nodded once. Her fingers brushed the scar gently. It was warm beneath her touch, but rough and raised like the bark of an ancient tree. A wound carved by betrayal. You don't feel like a monster, she murmured. Kale's lips twitched with something between pain and disbelief. That's because you're not close enough to see what I've done. Mara stepped closer, defiant. I've been close enough to monsters. They don't look haunted like you. He was silent for a beat. Then, you see, too much. I've been ignored long enough to notice what others miss, she said quietly. Cale looked away, rubbing the back of his neck. When I'm around you, my wolf goes quiet. It's never happened before. She blinked. Quiet? He nodded, unsure. It's like he's listening to you instead of me. That's not possible, she whispered. You said your kind doesn't just imprint like that. Cale stood now, towering but calm, his voice tinged with confusion. It shouldn't be. The mark is a choice, a bond sealed under the full moon by intention and blood. But mine, he held up his hand, flexing his fingers. Mine ignited the moment I smelled your blood. Before I even saw your face, a sharp twist coiled in Mara's stomach, her blood, the pendant, that clawed scrape from the woods, all of it, connected? Her mind raced. Cale, what if this isn't fate? What if the mark was manipulated? What if someone wanted this bond forced? His eyes darkened. Then we'll find out why. Together. The word stung with unfamiliar warmth. Together. And no one had said that word to her in years. No one had stood beside her. Not since her family died in that fire. Not since the world left her broken and discarded. She turned slightly away, swallowing thickly. Why would you help me, if this was never meant to be? Cale's voice was steady. Because something ancient tied us. I don't know if it's destiny or something darker, but I won't let you face it alone. She looked back at him, and this time, her guard slipped. A little. Even if I don't trust you yet? His hand rose to her cheek, brushing it with surprising gentleness. Then let me earn it. The fire cracked louder now, shadows dancing. In the silence that followed, her breath caught in her throat. She didn't lean away. For the first time in what felt like forever, she didn't want to run. Cale pulled his hand back, but his eyes remained on her. You should rest, he murmured, stepping toward the opposite end of the room. You've had enough nightmares for one night. She nodded faintly, but as she settled into the cabin's modest bed, one final thought haunted her. What if the nightmare was just beginning? The scent of pine and ash still clung to Mara's skin as dawn broke across the forest in pale, silvery streaks. Birds chirped from unseen perches, and the wind had softened its howl to a whisper. But despite the calm outside the cabin, Mara's dreams had been anything but peaceful. Cale was already gone when she woke. The bed was warm but empty, his scent still lingering in the air, a strange, intoxicating blend of wild musk and wood smoke. She stretched, her limbs aching, not from injury but from something more elusive, exhaustion buried deep in her soul. Something had changed between them last night. The scar, the touch, the way he looked at her like she was more than an accident of fate. Still, trust came slow, always had. She rose, pulling on the borrowed flannel shirt Cale had left for her, oversized and soft. As she stepped outside, the cold bit through her bare legs, but she didn't retreat. Instead, she let her eyes scan the dense trees, searching. A figure emerged from the forest, but it wasn't Cale. It was a man, tall, lean, cloaked in dark layers of leather and fur. His face was weathered, his eyes like flint. He moved like he knew every tree in this stretch of forest, every root and whisper of wind. He didn't look surprised to see her. Mara froze. Who are you? The man stopped a few feet from the porch. I could ask you the same, but I already know. Her heart thudded. Are you a shifter? No, he said with a shake of his head, but I've hunted your kind, long ago. His gaze swept over her. You're the girl Cale saved in the ravine, the one who wears the cursed stone. Her fingers unconsciously touched the pendant at her throat. What do you mean, cursed? You don't know what it is, do you? She shook her head slowly. It was my mother's. She said it was protection. The man's expression hardened. Protection, yes, but not for you. Mara's spine stiffened. Then for who? The stone binds, twists fate. It amplifies soul magic, especially between mates. He took a step closer. Someone gave that to your family to interfere with bloodlines. A wave of dizziness hit her. No, that can't be true. My mother, she wouldn't. Maybe she didn't know. The man interrupted gently. But the pendant is made from moonstone soaked in wolfsbane and sealed during a blood eclipse. That's ancient magic. Dangerous magic. Mara's mind reeled. Then why hasn't Cale said anything? He doesn't know, the huntsman said. Or maybe he doesn't want to know. His words were steady, but Mara heard the warning beneath them. Cale is part of something bigger. And maybe he's hiding it. I don't understand, she whispered. Why would someone want to force a bond? The huntsman hesitated, then drew something from his pocket, a scrap of parchment, brittle with age. He unfolded it carefully and handed it to her. It was a crude sketch. Two wolves intertwined under a blood-red moon. A prophecy etched beneath it in ancient runes. The marked union will bring either salvation or ruin, he translated softly. If made by blood, they will reign. If twisted by force, they will fall. Mara looked up, heart pounding. You think Kale and I are that union? The man gave her a grim nod. There are rumors, whispers among the elder clans. A rogue prince and a cursed girl marked to soon. A branch snapped nearby. Mara whirled. Kale emerged from the trees, shirtless, his eyes wild. The huntsman didn't move. Kale strode forward, placing himself between them. Leave her alone, Joran. The man. Joran tilted his head, still so quick to protect. But can you protect her from what's inside you? Kale's hands clenched. This isn't your business anymore. It became my business when she entered these woods wearing that stone. Joran turned to Mara, his voice softer now. Asked him what happened to his last mate. Mara blinked. His what? Kale growled, low and menacing. Enough. But it was too late. The words had already struck. Joran turned and melted into the forest without another word. The air felt heavier in his absence. Mara stepped back, suddenly unsure. What did he mean? Your last mate? Kale's jaw was tight, his eyes shadowed. It's not what you think. Then tell me, she whispered. Don't hide from me. Not now. He exhaled hard and looked away. Her name was Alira. She wasn't chosen by fate, she was chosen by the pack. My father arranged it, said it would make me stronger. Mara's chest ached. What happened to her? She died, he said simply. Killed by rogues. I couldn't save her. But you didn't love her? Mara asked quietly. Kale met her gaze. No, I mourned her death, but I didn't feel the pull like I do with you. The bond between us. He reached for her, but stopped short. It's real, I swear it. But now I fear it was tampered with. Mara stepped back again, overwhelmed. So, everything between us could be a lie? No, Kale said firmly. Something dark may have forced the timing, but not the feeling. I would have found you eventually, with or without the mark. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Mara nodded, eyes glistening. Then help me find the truth. About the pendant, about the prophecy, about us. Kale's shoulders eased. We'll go to the Iron Hall Seer. She'll know. And if she says it's all been manipulated? Mara asked. Kale's voice was low and resolute. Then we burn whoever tried to control our fate. The cold wind blew again, rustling the trees. But this time, Mara didn't flinch, because for the first time, she wasn't afraid of Kale. She was afraid of what they might uncover together. The path to the seer's domain was hidden in a part of the forest that didn't welcome strangers. The pines stood impossibly tall, their branches so dense they blocked the sun, turning midday into dusk. Twisting roots tripped Mara as she followed Kale, who moved with silent confidence, as if he belonged here, as if he was part of this darkness. And maybe he was. They had barely spoken since the confrontation with the huntsman. Mara had too many questions, and Kale had too few answers. But still, she followed. She had to. Some part of her older than reason knew this path was the only way forward. Kale stopped at a crescent-shaped glade. We're close. How do you know? Mara asked. The trees hum differently here, he said, scanning the shadows. This land remembers magic. It welcomes those who were born of it, and warns those who weren't. Mara looked around, unsettled. So which am I? He turned to her, eyes softening. That's what we're here to find out. They walked the final stretch in silence until a low stone structure appeared, half swallowed by the roots of a towering oak. Vines climbed over its curved walls, and faint smoke curled from a chimney made of polished bone. Wind chimes crafted from hollow reeds and knuckle-sized stones jingled with a natural rhythm, like whispers in the wind. Kale slowed. She's here. The door creaked open on its own. A woman emerged. He stepped back. That's not possible. Varka turned to him. Your father was hunted. Your mother fled before she could give you your full name. You never knew what you carried. Kale's voice was raw. And now it's too late. No, Varka said. Now is exactly the right time. She turned to Mara. But you, child, you are the key. If you run, the bond dies. If you fight together, you will awaken something that hasn't stirred in decades. What do we do? Mara whispered. Varka walked to the door and opened it. You leave before the moon turns red. And you survive. The trees whispered secrets again, but now they whispered with urgency, like the forest itself had begun to fear what lurked in its own shadows. Mara's breath came in shallow bursts as she followed Kale down the narrow path, thorns brushing her cloak, mist curling low around their boots. The chill had deepened since they left the Iron Halcyr's cavernous den, and so had the silence between them, not since Varka's revelation. 3 nights until the blood moon, 3 nights until ancient power awakened, 3 nights until the crimson suns would come for her, for him, for their bond. Kale walked ahead, tension coiled in his shoulders, every movement taut with quiet fury. He hadn't spoken since they'd left, but Mara could feel the battle raging inside him. It matched her own. She reached out, fingers brushing his hand. He paused but didn't turn. Kale, what she said, about the Alpha King, about your bloodline, I never wanted it. He cut her off, his voice low and edged with something brittle. I tried to reject it, hide it, but blood doesn't forget. Power doesn't sleep forever. You should have told me. He finally turned, eyes gleaming gold in the low light. Would you have followed me if I had? The question hit harder than she expected. She wasn't sure of the answer, and he could see that. His jaw tightened, and without another word, he turned and continued forward. They moved in tense silence through a thick grove of black-barked pines, their branches heavy with dew. A low rustle ahead made Kale stop abruptly, holding up a clenched fist. Mara froze behind him, senses prickling. A shadow darted between trees, then another. Kale's voice was a warning growl. We're not alone. More movement fast to smooth for rogues. From the gloom, wolves emerged, 5 of them, sleek and disciplined. Crimson and silver markings shimmered faintly across their flanks. Their stances were deliberate, controlled. Mara's chest tightened. Hunters, she breathed. Kale gave a slight nod. Crimson suns. The high circle's enforcers. The lead wolf shifted, bones cracking with practiced ease as he rose on 2 legs, a tall, lean man with a deep scar across his throat and ceremonial beads woven into his dreadlocked hair. He wore no shirt, only a mantle of fur and faded tattoos across his chest, his amber eyes fixed on Kale with a twisted smile. Kale of the Ghostwood, or should I say, last heir of Iron Blood? Kale remained still, his voice gravel and ice. You have no authority here, the hunter chuckled. I don't need it. We're not here for you, Kale. Not really. His gaze slid past Kale and settled on Mara. She stiffened. The girl marked by the moonbind. The one foolish enough to carry fate in her chest. Kale stepped protectively in front of her. If you touch her, oh. I don't plan to, the man said. She'll come on her own, once she learns what you've kept from her. Kale's body went rigid. What are you talking about? Mara asked, voice barely above a whisper. The hunter smiled wider. He hasn't told you, has he? That your father died not by chance, not in the chaos of rebellion but by betrayal. That Kale was part of the unit sent to wipe out your kin. Mara's heart stuttered. No, she said. That's not true, isn't it? The hunter tilted his head mockingly. Ask him who led the strike into the Outlands. Ask him who drew first blood. Mara looked at Kale. Tell me he's lying. Kale's jaw clenched. I didn't know. I didn't know he was your father. I didn't know until it was over. So you were there, she whispered. You were one of them. I was young. I followed orders. I didn't ask questions. But when I realized who he was, what he was trying to protect, Kale's voice cracked. I tried to stop it. I was too late. The forest held its breath. You killed him, Mara said, eyes burning. Even if you didn't mean to, you were part of it. Kale didn't deny it, and that silence felt louder than any confession. The crimson hunter grinned. Romantic, isn't it? Fate's cruel joke, to bind her to the wolf who spilled her bloodline. Kale's snarl ripped through the clearing as he lunged. He struck like lightning, claws flashing as he tackled the hunter to the ground. Battle erupted instantly, fur and fangs colliding in violent arcs. The crimson sun struck with synchronized precision. 2 lunged at Kale. Another circled Mara. Panic and fury battled inside her. She stumbled back, heart racing, as a silver-bladed dagger flew past her face, nicking her cheek. Warm blood trickled down her skin. Then it happened. Her pendant, the moonbind stone, flared with blinding white light. Time slowed. The world tilted as a wave of energy surged outward from her chest, pulsing through the air like a sonic boom. The ground trembled. The attackers were flung backward, skidding across moss and root. Even Kale stopped, blinking at her in shock. Mara stood, her hair lifting as though in wind, eyes glowing faintly. The power inside her, it wasn't just reacting. It was awakening. The Crimson Sons scrambled to regroup. She's not ready. One of them barked. The bond isn't stable. Another hissed. Fall back. She's no good to us. Shattered. They retreated, vanishing into the mist like ghosts, leaving only broken leaves and blood in their wake. Mara fell to her knees, gasping. Kale rushed to her side, grabbing her shoulders. Are you hurt? No, she whispered. But, what just happened? You triggered the bond, he said, awe in his voice. You activated the Moonbind's defense instinct. It protected you. Her lip trembled. Then why didn't it protect me back then? Why didn't it protect my father? Kale's eyes darkened. Because I wasn't there to bind with him. I'm here now, Mara. I'll never run again. She didn't speak. The silence between them was thick grief, fury, and something unspoken still blooming underneath. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But not hate either. After a long pause, Kale stood and offered her his hand. We need to go. There's a place in Oldway Station in the southern ridge. Safe ground. We'll regroup there. But if we don't complete the bond before the blood moon, what happens? She asked, her voice hollow. Kale met her eyes. Then you'll burn from the inside out. And I'll die with you. The sky had darkened to a bruised purple by the time Mara and Kale reached the southern ridge. Twilight spilled across the treetops like ink, and shadows gathered quickly in the hollows of the earth. Here, on the jagged cliffside overlooking the black wooded valley, the world felt suspended like time held its breath. Mara stood at the edge, wind curling, her long hair into snarled ribbons. The cool bite of dusk air couldn't drown the heat in her chest. A wildfire of confusion, betrayal, and something she couldn't name. Beneath her boots, the crumbling rock whispered its own secrets, half-lost echoes of the past. Somewhere down there among the ruins, Kale had once hunted for the Crimson Sons. And now she was supposed to believe he was hunting with her. Behind her, Kale lit a fire. His movements were slow, deliberate, as though careful not to startle her. He hadn't said much since their escape from the Ironhowl ruins, since she'd confronted him, since the word murder left her lips like venom. The memory burned. She closed her eyes. Every moment near him made her wolf stir. Every breath he took was scented into her skin. She hated how much her soul still leaned toward him. You haven't asked about the mark, Kale said, voice rough. She didn't turn. What's the point? His footsteps crunched through gravel behind her, stopping just short. The mark you carry. It was never meant to be forced. When it happened, I thought it would protect you. From others. From me. She turned now, slowly. You marked me without consent. I didn't complete it, he said. That's why it's still burning in both of us. Why it hurts. His gaze dropped. Because it wasn't sealed with trust. The words made her throat tighten. The pain in her shoulder where the mark lay was a constant ache, hot aching, like an open flame buried beneath skin. She touched it absently, not sure whether she wanted to tear it away or press it closer. She walked past him to the fire and sat down across from him, folding her arms. Say what you came here to say. He looked into the flames. You deserve the truth, all of it. The night your father died, I was under orders from the Crimson Sons elders. They said he'd betrayed the shifter code, that he was trafficking forbidden magic lies. She snapped. My father protected the lore. He risked everything to keep our kind from falling into war. Kale nodded. I know that now. But then, I believed them. I was 18, loyal, naive. She searched his face. And what changed? You, he said simply. Her fingers brushed the scar gently. It was warm beneath her touch, but rough and raised like the bark of an ancient tree. A wound carved by betrayal. You don't feel like a monster, she murmured. Kale's lips twitched with something between pain and disbelief. That's because you're not close enough to see what I've done. Mara stepped closer, defiant. I've been close enough to monsters. They don't look haunted like you. He was silent for a beat. Then, you see, too much. I've been ignored long enough to notice what others miss, she said quietly. Kale looked away, rubbing the back of his neck. When I'm around you, my wolf goes quiet. It's never happened before. She blinked. Quiet? He nodded, unsure. It's like he's listening to you instead of me. That's not possible, she whispered. You said your kind doesn't just imprint like that. Kale stood now, towering but calm, his voice tinged with confusion. It shouldn't be. The mark is a choice, a bond sealed under the full moon by intention and blood. But mine. He held up his hand, flexing his fingers. Mine ignited the moment I smelled your blood. Before I even saw your face, a sharp twist coiled in Mara's stomach, her blood, the pendant, that clawed scrape from the woods, all of it, connected? Her mind raced. Kale, what if this isn't fate? What if the mark was manipulated? What if someone wanted this bond forced? His eyes darkened. Then we'll find out why. Together. The word stung with unfamiliar warmth. Together. And no one had said that word to her in years. No one had stood beside her. Not since her family died in that fire. Not since the world left her broken and discarded. She turned slightly away, swallowing thickly. Why would you help me? If this was never meant to be. Kale's voice was steady. Because something ancient tied us. I don't know if it's destiny or something darker, but I won't let you face it alone. She looked back at him, and this time, her guard slipped. A little. Even if I don't trust you yet? His hand rose to her cheek, brushing it with surprising gentleness. Then let me earn it. The fire cracked louder now, shadows dancing. In the silence that followed, her breath caught in her throat. She didn't lean away. For the first time in what felt like forever, she didn't want to run. Kale pulled his hand back, but his eyes remained on her. You should rest, he murmured, stepping toward the opposite end of the room. You've had enough nightmares for one night. She nodded faintly, but as she settled into the cabin's modest bed, one final thought haunted her. What if the nightmare was just beginning? The scent of pine and ash still clung to Mara's skin as dawn broke across the forest in pale, silvery streaks. Birds chirped from unseen perches, and the wind had softened its howl to a whisper. But despite the calm outside the cabin, Mara's dreams had been anything but peaceful. Kale was already gone when she woke. The bed was warm but empty, his scent still lingering in the air, a strange, intoxicating blend of wild musk and wood smoke. She stretched, her limbs aching, not from injury but from something more elusive, exhaustion buried deep in her soul. Something had changed between them last night. The scar, the touch, the way he looked at her like she was more than an accident of fate. Still, trust came slow, always had. She rose, pulling on the borrowed flannel shirt Kale had left for her, oversized and soft. As she stepped outside, the cold bit through her bare legs, but she didn't retreat. Instead, she let her eyes scan the dense trees, searching. A figure emerged from the forest, but it wasn't Kale. It was a man, tall, lean, cloaked in dark layers of leather and fur. His face was weathered, his eyes like flint. He moved like he knew every tree in this stretch of forest, every root and whisper of wind. He didn't look surprised to see her. Mara froze. Who are you? The man stopped a few feet from the porch. I could ask you the same, but I already know. Her heart thudded. Are you a shifter? No, he said with a shake of his head. But I've hunted your kind, long ago. His gaze swept over her. You're the girl Kale saved in the ravine, the one who wears the cursed stone. Her fingers unconsciously touched the pendant at her throat. What do you mean? Cursed? You don't know what it is, do you? She shook her head slowly. It was my mother's. She said it was protection. The man's expression hardened. Protection, yes, but not for you. Mara's spine stiffened. Then for who? The stone binds, twists fate. It amplifies soul magic, especially between mates. He took a step closer. Someone gave that to your family to interfere with bloodlines. A wave of dizziness hit her. No, that can't be true. My mother, she wouldn't. Maybe she didn't know. The man interrupted gently. But the pendant is made from moonstone soaked in wolfsbane and sealed during a blood eclipse. That's ancient magic. Dangerous magic. Mara's mind reeled. Then why hasn't Kale said anything? He doesn't know, the huntsman said. Or maybe he doesn't want to know. His words were steady, but Mara heard the warning beneath them. Kale is part of something bigger. And maybe he's hiding it. I don't understand, she whispered. Why would someone want to force a bond? The huntsman hesitated, then drew something from his pocket, a scrap of parchment, brittle with age. He unfolded it carefully and handed it to her. It was a crude sketch. Two wolves intertwined under a blood-red moon. A prophecy etched beneath it in ancient runes. The marked union will bring either salvation or ruin, he translated softly. If made by blood, they will reign. If twisted by force, they will fall. Mara looked up, heart pounding. You think Kale and I are that union? The man gave her a grim nod. There are rumors, whispers among the elder clans. A rogue prince and a cursed girl marked to soon. a branch snapped nearby. Mara whirled. Kale emerged from the trees, shirtless, his eyes wild. The huntsman didn't move. Kale strode forward, placing himself between them. Leave her alone, Joran. The man. Joran tilted his head, still so quick to protect. But can you protect her from what's inside you? Kale's hands clenched. This isn't your business anymore. It became my business when she entered these woods wearing that stone. Joran turned to Mara, his voice softer now. Ask him what happened to his last mate. Mara blinked. His what? Kale growled, low and menacing. Enough. But it was too late. The words had already struck. Joran turned and melted into the forest without another word. The air felt heavier in his absence. Mara stepped back, suddenly unsure. What did he mean? Your last mate? Kale's jaw was tight, his eyes shadowed. It's not what you think. Then tell me, she whispered. Don't hide from me. Not now. He exhaled hard and looked away. Her name was Alira. She wasn't chosen by fate, she was chosen by the pack. My father arranged it, said it would make me stronger. Mara's chest ached. What happened to her? She died, he said simply. Killed by rogues. I couldn't save her. But you didn't love her? Mara asked quietly. Kale met her gaze. No, I mourned her death, but I didn't feel the pull like I do with you. The bond between us. He reached for her, but stopped short. It's real, I swear it. But now I fear it was tampered with. Mara stepped back again, overwhelmed. So, everything between us could be a lie? No, Kale said firmly. Something dark may have forced the timing, but not the feeling. I would have found you eventually, with or without the mark. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Mara nodded, eyes glistening. Then help me find the truth. About the pendant, about the prophecy, about us. Kale's shoulders eased. We'll go to the Iron Hall Seer. She'll know. And if she says it's all been manipulated? Mara asked. Kale's voice was low and resolute. Then we burn whoever tried to control our fate. The cold wind blew again, rustling the trees. But this time, Mara didn't flinch, because for the first time, she wasn't afraid of Kale. She was afraid of what they might uncover together. The path to the seer's domain was hidden in a part of the forest that didn't welcome strangers. The pines stood impossibly tall, their branches so dense they blocked the sun, turning midday into dusk. Twisting roots tripped Mara as she followed Kale, who moved with silent confidence, as if he belonged here, as if he was part of this darkness. And maybe he was. They had barely spoken since the confrontation with the huntsman. Mara had too many questions, and Kale had too few answers. But still, she followed. She had to. Some part of her older than reason knew this path was the only way forward. Kale stopped at a crescent-shaped glade. We're close. How do you know? Mara asked. The trees hum differently here, he said, scanning the shadows. This land remembers magic. It welcomes those who were born of it, and warns those who weren't. Mara looked around, unsettled. So which am I? He turned to her, eyes softening. That's what we're here to find out. They walked the final stretch in silence until a low stone structure appeared, half swallowed by the roots of a towering oak. Vines climbed over its curved walls, and faint smoke curled from a chimney made of polished bone. Wind chimes crafted from hollow reeds and knuckle-sized stones jingled with a natural rhythm, like whispers in the wind. Kale slowed. She's here. The door creaked open on its own. A woman emerged. Kale. He stepped through the clearing like a shadow born of the wind. But this time, his eyes weren't guarded. They were burning. I felt something, he said. A pull. I couldn't stay away. She looked up at him, body trembling. Did you know about her? He nodded. I've felt her presence since we entered these lands. The spirits are stirring. Because of you. Mara stood slowly. If I seal the bond, what happens to you? Kale looked away. You'll see everything I am. Every choice. Every drop of blood. You'll carry my sins as your own. And if I don't, then your power will spiral. They'll take it, twist it, and I'll lose you. Mara hesitated. I don't even know if I love you. Kale took a step closer. Then, let your wolf decide. Silence. Inside her chest, her wolf stirred and it chose. She reached forward, her hand slipping into his. The shard between them blazed white hot. A wave of light and pain and memory slammed through her like fire through ice. She saw him, truly saw him. Every agony, every mistake, every moment he could have killed her, and didn't. Tears burned down her cheeks. When the light faded, she collapsed into his arms. It's done, Kale whispered, breath ragged. We're bonded. No, she said softly, pressing her forehead to his. It's only just begun. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the rhythmic beating of Alar's heart as she stood just outside the old Iron Hall chapel. The blood moon cast a crimson glow over the valley, bathing the forest in hues of wine and shadow. Every instinct in her screamed to run, but something in her bones told her this was the moment everything would either shatter or make sense. Behind her, Fenris didn't move. His breath came slow and heavy, but his energy surged like a wildfire barely contained beneath skin and muscle. She could feel his presence humming through the bond that had grown stronger with every shared secret, every near death, and every kiss they weren't supposed to share. Alara, he said, voice low, rough. I need you to see me, all of me. She turned, her eyes searching his face. I already do. No, he said with a shake of his head. Not like this. And then, as if the blood moon gave him permission, he stepped into the light and began to shift. Bones cracked, skin shimmered. It was not like the first violent, sudden transformation she'd witnessed during the rogue attack in the village. This was slow, controlled, almost reverent. His wolf was massive, with obsidian fur tinged with silver streaks that caught the moonlight like armor. But what truly stole her breath was the ancient mark glowing on his shoulder, a spiral of runes, intertwined with claw-like lines, pulsing red beneath the blood moon's gaze. What is that? She breathed. His wolf bowed his head, then shifted back, clothes already torn, body trembling, but gaze steady. It's the moonbind mark, he said. A soul brand, passed down by my bloodline, only visible during the blood moon, only ever meant to appear when we find our true mate. Her throat tightened. But that means that you're mine, he said simply. Fated, chosen by the moon. The very thing I tried to fight to deny is you. Silence held them like a delicate thread. Alara's mind reeled. You tried to reject it, to reject me. I thought rejecting the bond would protect you, he said, stepping closer. Because when a marked mate dies, the other doesn't survive long. Her heart cracked. You thought I was a weakness. I thought love was, he whispered. Until I met you. The air around them shimmered with tension, electric and ancient. The bond between them now felt like a third presence, sentient, alive, wrapping around their hearts. But the others, she said. Your pack, they won't accept me. They'll have to, Fenris growled. The moonbind doesn't choose wrong. And if they deny you, they deny me. Just then, a rustle from the trees drew her attention. Shadows moved. Figures emerged, pack members. At least 5 of them, eyes glowing amber in the dark, expressions unreadable. Alara's spine stiffened. Fenris moved in front of her instinctively. Don't, she whispered. They need to see who I am, who we are. One of the wolves stepped forward. Ronan, the Iron Howl enforcer. His face bore the fresh bruises from a recent fight. We felt the mark flare, he said. The blood moon chose? Fenris gave a single nod. Ronan's eyes slid to Alara. A human? A seer's descendant, Fenris corrected. And my fated mate. Ronan hesitated, then knelt. Then she carries the will of the moon. Alara blinked. What does that mean? It means, came a voice from the edge of the group, an older woman with braided silver hair, that your mark is only the beginning. And if the prophecy is true, your bond may be the only thing that keeps the Iron Howl legacy from falling. Alara's voice trembled. What prophecy? The woman approached. When the blood moon burns red and the marked mate bears the seer's gift, the cursed alpha will either rise in salvation or perish in ruin. Fenris's body tensed. Alara whispered, that's you. The wind howled in agreement, and suddenly, Alara understood this wasn't just about love or survival. It was about fate, power, and the curse that had followed Fenris since birth. He hadn't just marked her. He had tied her to a destiny far older than either of them. I don't care what the prophecy says, she said quietly, stepping beside him. We break it together, or we don't break at all. Fenris took her hand. Then we stand as one. As the blood moon blazed overhead, the ancient mark on his shoulder flared, pulsing red, then silver, until a matching glow burned just beneath the skin of her own palm. Her fate was sealed. So was his. And the real war was just beginning. The Iron Howl Keep was quiet to quiet. Alara had expected torches, guards, maybe even resistance. But the long stone corridors echoed only with the sound of their steps, her boots barely making a sound beside Fenris's heavier tread. They're watching, Fenris murmured, low enough only she could hear. They're always watching before a trial. Alara's stomach tightened. Trial? He didn't look at her as they turned into a narrow hallway that curved deep into the mountain's base. It's the only way to silence the doubters. To prove the moonbind wasn't a mistake. You have to prove it, she whispered harshly. But the mark is sacred, he said. But even sacred things are questioned when fear blinds the eyes of the old guard. And there are still those who think the mark should have chosen a pureblood she-wolf, not a Seer's bastard from a dying human bloodline. She stopped walking, the insult hitting deep. Fenris turned to her, regret flickering in his eyes. That's what they say, not what I believe. Her jaw clenched, but she moved forward again. So what is this trial exactly? He sighed. The trial of the forsworn flame, a test of loyalty, bond, and truth. They want to see if our connection is strong enough to survive temptation, illusion, even pain. If we fail, we're marked as false mates. And what happens to us if we're marked? They exile me, he said. And you won't be safe outside the protection of the pack. Alara swallowed hard. Then we don't fail. He gave her a tight, grim smile. We can't afford to. The doors at the end of the corridor loomed tall and iron-bound, marked with ancient glyphs that pulsed faintly under the torchlight. Two elders waited their Ronin, and the silver-haired seer woman from the Blood Moon gathering. The bond has been declared, Ronin said formally. The moonbind shone beneath bloodlight. Now comes the test. Alara nodded once, forcing the tremble in her spine to still. Step inside together, the woman said. And whatever you see, do not lose each other. The doors creaked open, revealing pitch blackness inside. Fenris reached for Alara's hand. We go together. She grasped his fingers tightly. Always, and together, they stepped into the dark Dada tea first. There was nothing, no sound, no light, not even their own breathing. Then a cold wind sliced through the void, and when Alara opened her eyes again, she stood alone. She blinked rapidly. Fenris? Nothing. Fenris. Only the sound of distant howling answered her. Panic surged, but before she could run, light flared to her left. A fire, burning inside a stone ring, and seated beside it, her father. He looked exactly as he had before he died, lined face, deep eyes, the scar down his cheek she remembered. Tracing as a child, Alara, he said gently, you don't belong with him. She froze. This isn't real. You're dead. Real enough to know what's coming, he said. Fenris murdered me, remember? You said so yourself. Her chest heaved. He didn't know. He thought he was ordered to kill the man who protected you, raised you. Tears welled in her eyes. I forgave him. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. His voice turned colder. And you've forgotten too much about who you are, what you are. I'm stronger with him, she whispered. Then why are you trembling? The fire flared brighter, casting a warped shadow across her father's face. For a split second, his eyes turned black. Alara's breath caught. You're not him. You're too late. The thing that were her father's voice said. The bond is poison. The curse will destroy you both. The flames leapt and the world shattered. She gasped awake inside a snowy field, collapsed beside a frozen lake. A dark form stood at the center of the ice. Fenris, on his knees, blood dripping from his chest. No, she cried, running toward him, slipping across the slick ice. Fenris. He didn't move. As she neared, she saw the blade still buried in his side, an ornate dagger etched with runes. She reached for it. I did this, said her own voice behind her. She turned. Another version of herself stood there, robed in white, eyes glowing silver. He trusted you, and you brought death to his door. I never. You doubted him. You questioned the bond. You let others plant poison in your heart. Alara gritted her teeth. That's not who I am. The mirror. Alara smiled. Then prove it. She looked down at Fenris again. He was barely breathing. She pressed both hands to his face. Fenris, come back to me. I choose you. Even if this is an illusion, even if this is the end, I choose you. The ice beneath them cracked, and the world exploded in light. When she opened her eyes again, she was back inside the trial chamber. Fenris beside her, his hands still clasped in hers. Ronan stood before them, eyes wide. The silver-haired woman was weeping silently. You passed, she whispered. The moonbind is true, stronger than any we've seen in decades. Fenris looked at Alara, dazed. You were bleeding. I saw you and you were dying, she said. He gripped her tighter. I'll never let them take you. No one will, Ronan said solemnly. You are bound, marked by blood and fire. The trial is done. Gasps echoed from around the chamber as more pack members stepped from the shadows, some kneeling, others simply watching in awe. But one voice pierced the silence like a blade. She still isn't one of us. A tall, lean wolf with ice-white hair stepped forward. Alric, Fenris's cousin, and the most vocal opponent to their bond. She passed your trial, Fenris growled. The real trial, Alric said, will be surviving what's coming. He threw something at their feet, a scrap of cloth soaked in blood and bearing a sigil Alara didn't recognize. The Boneclaw pack marches at dawn, Alric said grimly. And they're bringing the dark howl with them. Alara picked up the cloth, her fingers trembling. What's the dark howl? Ronan's face paled. The first cursed wolf, the one whose bloodline spawned the rogue alpha. They want the seer's heir, Alric said, eyes locked on Alara. And now they know where she is. Fenris pulled Alara behind him protectively. She shook her head. No more running. No more hiding. This isn't just about us anymore. She stepped forward, fire in her eyes. I passed your trials. I survived your illusions. I carry the moonbind and the seer's gift. She raised the blood-soaked sigil. If they're coming, then we stand and fight. And this time, the pack didn't just listen. They howled. The skies darkened above the Iron Howl Keep, the silver moon slipping slowly into the shadow of the earth. A rare lunar eclipse, the kind the old seers used to call the blood eclipse. When fate tilted and destinies rewrote themselves, Alara stood at the cliff's edge overlooking the valley. Below, the torches of the Boneclaw pack flickered like a swarm of fireflies, marching toward them with grim purpose. They'll be here by sunrise, Fenris said quietly behind her. Our scouts saw their alpha. He rides with the dark howl. She turned to him. The scar across his jaw, the worry etched into his brow, the raw protectiveness in his eyes, it all felt like home now. We face them together, she said. This is what the moonbind meant, isn't it? Not just choosing each other but protecting the world that tried to tear us apart. Fenris reached into his cloak and pulled something out, a pendant shaped like a crescent moon, carved from bone and etched in iron runes. This belonged to your mother. Alara froze. How did you? She wore it the day she died, he said softly. My father took it, kept it hidden, but Ronan found it in the archives, said it called to you. Alara cupped it in her palm. The moment her skin touched the bone, a vision flashed, her mother, standing beneath the same moon, whispering a lullaby in an ancient tongue. She heard the final words clearly now. What is broken can be bound again. Beneath the eclipse, the bloodline shall awaken. Tears shimmered in her eyes. She wasn't just a seer, she was a bloodlore guardian. Fenris nodded. The Boneclaws don't just want you because of the seer's blood. They want to end the bloodlore line forever, because your family carries the power to awaken old truths, and they fear truth more than war. Alara turned toward the rising howls in the distance. Then let's show them the truth. The battlefield was a frozen stretch of moonlit stone and shadowed trees. The Boneclaws came like a storm, snarling, armored, flanked by the hulking figure known only as the Dark Howl. His presence warped the air, a void of black mist spiraling around him. Alara stood between the Iron Howl warriors and the enemy, robed in her mother's cloak and the moon pendant gleaming like fire against her chest. Fenris stood beside her in wolf form, massive, black as night, his eyes burning with fierce gold. As the first wave surged forward, Alara stepped forward and raised both hands. Enough, her voice boomed, unnaturally loud, echoing with the power of a bloodlore invocation. The ground trembled beneath her feet. I am Alara of the seer's line. The moonbind lives in me, the bloodlore awakens through me, and I will not let this valley fall. The dark howl growled, his voice a deep rumble. You are nothing but a half-blood witch. Alara smiled. Then let's see what a witch can do. The sky split as the eclipse reached its peak, painting the battlefield in deep crimson. In that moment, something ancient stirred within Alara, an instinct as old as the stars. She pressed her palm to the earth, the glyphs on the pendant pulsed, and a ring of fire erupted around the Boneclaw forces. Not to burn them but to contain them, confuse them, turn their numbers against them. The Iron Howl warriors howled in unison, charging with precision. Fenris leapt, fangs bared, clashing with the Dark Howl in a whirlwind of fang and claw. The Dark Howl was stronger, but Fenris was faster, smarter, and he had something the Dark Alpha didn't, someone worth living for. When the Dark Howl slammed Fenris against a rock, Alara screamed, but she didn't run. She focused. She called the bond, and from within Fenris, something exploded, a second shift, deeper than flesh. His wolf form shimmered, then grew, his shadow stretching as the moonbind pulsed visibly across his chest. He rose not just as an alpha but as the true-bound alpha. The fight turned. The Boneclaws fell back, their leader staggering as Fenris tore into him with feral precision. And when the final blow came, it wasn't Fenris who struck it. It was Alara. She stood behind the dark howl, blade in hand, the same iron dagger from the trial, and whispered, "This is for my father." Then she drove the blade into his heart. The mist broke, the howling ceased, and silence claimed the valley. Dawn bled gold across the battlefield. The Iron Howl pack stood victorious, the Boneclaws scattered and broken. Alara leaned against Fenris's chest, both of them bruised, bloodied but alive. "I can't feel the pendant anymore," she said softly. "It served its purpose," Fenris replied. "You don't need its power. You are its power." She looked around at the pack, how they looked at her now with awe, not suspicion, not fear. "You've changed them," she whispered. "No," Fenris said. "You did." He brushed her hair back and tilted her chin. "And you changed me. Before you, I only knew violence, rage, vengeance. And now I know peace. And I never want to lose it." He kissed her beneath the rising sun, not in desperation, but in promise. And the pack howled not in war, but in celebration. Weeks passed. The keep was rebuilt. The pack began to heal. Alara took her place beside Fenris, not as a fragile human, not even just as a mate but as his equal. His Luna. She stood before the moon altar, her hand in his, as Ronan placed the final glyph upon their joined hands. "By blood, by bond, by moon," he declared, "let it be known that no rogue, no curse, no darkness shall break what fate has bound." And so it was. In the quiet that followed, as the moonlight bathed the stones, Fenris whispered in her ear, "What do you see now, seer?" Alara closed her eyes and smiled. A future. And for the first time in years, she saw one that wasn't soaked in blood, but lit with love. Old, almost ageless, with skin the color of weathered bark and long gray hair braided with feathers and claws. She wore a robe layered in leaves, moss, and runes stitched from gold thread. But her eyes were silver moons, swirling with visions. "You came late," the seer said without preamble. "The moon has already begun to speak." Mara flinched. "You knew we'd come?" "I knew you would," the seer said, peering into Mara's soul like she was reading a book already written. "But him?" Her gaze flicked to Kale with a faint scowl. "I never thought the rogue would escort his mark." Kale's jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. The seer stepped aside. "Come in. You've both stirred threads that were meant to stay buried." Inside the seer's home, the air was thick with scent-dried herbs, crushed petals, iron, and salt. Dozens of shelves lined the walls, holding jars of strange substances, some pulsing faintly, others whispering. When Mara passed out, in the center was a large basin filled with dark water, veined with light that glowed faintly. The seer gestured for Mara to sit. "You've brought the moonbind stone. Show me." Mara hesitated, then pulled the pendant from beneath her sweater. The seer's breath caught, so it did survive, she muttered, stepping closer. "The last tether stone. I thought the Crimson Pact destroyed them all." Kale narrowed his eyes. "The Crimson Pact again?" The seer nodded. "They once ruled the northern wilds through magic and manipulation. When they couldn't control a wolf by force, they bound his soul through bloodlines. And stones like this." She turned to Mara. "Do you know what you carry?" "I was told it protected my bloodline." "It did more than that," the seer said. "It manipulated your fate. It found your mate Kale and dragged your souls together. Before they were ready." Mara looked at Kale. He stared at the floor, unmoving. "So our bond is real?" The seer nodded. "It is, but it was forced to bloom early." The moonbind stone accelerated what should have unfolded gently over years. "Now your wolves clash, your bodies scream, your minds resist. Because fate was cut open, not nurtured." Mara's voice trembled. "Can it be undone?" The seer turned toward a cabinet and withdrew a carved box. From inside, she pulled a thin crystal blade that shimmered with white fire. "It can be severed," she said. "With this? But the wound will bleed long. If the bond is true, the pain may haunt you both forever. If false, you'll forget him in time." Mara's fingers trembled on her lap. "And if we let it grow, then there is hope," the seer said softly. "But it must be slow, natural. No more running, no more forcing." She looked to Kale. "You have to let her choose you freely." He met her gaze. "I never wanted to force anything. You wear the scent of guilt," the seer said. "And yet, Your soul howls for hers. Mara's chest tightened. Why me? Why did this bond come to me? The seer's face darkened. Because your mother was once promised to the Crimson Alpha. She fled, hid, bore you in secret. The moonbind stone was meant to seal her away, but it clung to you instead. Mara's breath hitched. She never told me. She couldn't. Some truths awaken curses. Kale stepped forward, voice raw. You said the Crimson Pact is gone. The seer opened a scroll on the table, revealing a faded symbol to wolves, circling a blood-red moon. They're not gone, she said. They've simply moved in the shadows, and they've seen the bond spark again. With her, she walked to the basin and whispered something ancient. The water flared, showing visions, wolves running through fire, a hooded figure bearing a crown of ash, and Mara chained in a circle of glowing symbols. They seek the moonbind air, the seer whispered, to restart their reign with a bonded. Luna willing or not, Kale snarled. They'll never touch her. The seer turned, gaze sharp. You cannot protect her alone. Blood moon rises in 3 nights. The veil between fate and power will be thin. If they strike then we'll be ready, Mara said firmly. The seer looked surprised. I'm not a pawn, Mara said, lifting her chin. I didn't ask for this, but I won't let them chain me. I'll fight. A long silence followed. The seer nodded once. Then there may be hope yet. She handed Kale a small vial of glowing liquid. For the pain that's coming, and to Mara, she pressed a carved stone into her hand. For the choices you'll have to make. Mara looked down at the carving to wolves, one of bone, one of moonlight. You are both, the seer whispered. Now choose who you will become. The path to the Iron Hall Seer's den wound deep into the ancient woods, where sunlight rarely pierced the canopy and the air tasted of moss and secrets. Each step Mara took alongside Kale felt heavier, as if the trees themselves were watching, judging, holding their breath. Her heartbeat matched the rhythm of the forest's silence. Kale walked ahead, his broad shoulders tense beneath his dark cloak. His wolf senses were alert, ears twitching at every unseen rustle. Mara didn't need heightened instincts to know that something about this part of the woods felt wrong or ancient, like the air itself had memory. When they finally arrived at the twisted hollow of a giant elm, Mara paused. The trunk had split open long ago, and in its heart stood a dwelling shaped from bark, bones, and carved stones etched in old runes. Hanging from the arched doorway were dozens of talismans, feathers, claws, shards of crystal and metal, all chiming gently in the windless air. She's here, Kale said quietly. Before Mara could ask who she was, the door creaked open. A figure emerged, no taller than Mara's chest. The woman's skin was a patchwork of deep lines and scars, her robes layered in forest dyes and shifter teeth. Her eyes were a milky silver and seeing, yet unblinking. I felt your approach, she said, her voice like wind scraping over stone. And hers even stronger. You knew I was coming? Mara asked. I knew the moonbound mark would awaken. Again, it always brings chaos. Mara instinctively clutched the crystal at her throat. Kale stepped forward. We need answers. The seer, known only as Varka, gave a small nod and turned, motioning them inside with a long finger. The hut smelled of crushed herbs and damp soil. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with grim trophies, jars of wolf eyes, dried bloodroot, bones from creatures Mara didn't recognize. A low fire crackled in the center, casting flickering light on faded tapestries. One showed a white wolf chained beneath a blood-red moon. Sit, Varka ordered. Kale remained standing. Mara obeyed, though the stool beneath her creaked ominously. You carry the moonbind stone, the seer said to Mara, her voice low and reverent. Mara nodded. It was my mother's. She said it was protection. It was, Varka said. But protection always comes with cost. She moved toward a carved bowl and poured in thick black water. With a claw-tipped finger, she stirred it, murmuring. In a forgotten tongue, the water shimmered, then stilled. In it, Mara saw herself. Then she saw Kale, eyes glowing, claws out, blood on his chest, and behind him, fire. This is your tether, Varka said. Not a normal mate bond. It was created, not discovered. Mara felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Created? How? Varka touched the stone around her neck. This crystal doesn't just find your soulmate. It binds them, even before either of you are ready. That's why your connection hurts. It's being forced. Kale stiffened beside her. Forced bonds are forbidden. They're dark magic. They are, Varka confirmed. Most were destroyed after the Crimson Purge, but one stone remained. That one. She leaned closer to Mara, her milky eyes narrowing. Your bloodline protected it, but not just for safekeeping. Your mother knew. Mara's breath caught. What do you mean? She was part of the Iron Howl Accord, a secret faction that believed in preserving old bloodlines. They passed the stone through generations, waiting for the right soul to activate it. Kale's voice was cold. So Mara's mother meant for this to happen? No, Varka said. She meant to save her daughter from something darker. But fate doesn't wait for understanding. Mara's voice trembled. Can it be undone? Undone? Varka's laughter was dry and brittle. No, but it can be balanced. Your bond is still forming. If you pull away now, it could scar you both permanently. But if you stay too close too fast, the bond could collapse under its own weight. She turned to Kale. You've felt it, haven't you? The pull when she's close, the pain when she's far. He didn't answer, but Mara saw it in his eyes. You must protect each other without claiming each other too soon, Varka warned. The blood moon rises in 3 nights. If your bond hasn't stabilized by then, others will come for her. Who? Kale asked. Varka reached into a pouch and pulled out a shard of crimson glass, holding it to the fire. It cast red light on the walls, shifting into shapes snarling wolves with glowing red eyes. The Crimson Sons, she whispered. Descendants of the old Pact Kings. They believe the Moonbind Stone can crown a new alpha over all bloodlines. They will hunt her to claim it, and control the magic inside her. Mara gripped the edges of her seat. They want to use me. They want to weaponize your bond, Varka said grimly. Because Kale is no ordinary wolf. You were bound to him for a reason. Kale's jaw clenched. What reason? The seer looked at them both, then rose and removed the tapestry of the chained wolf. Behind it was a carving etched into the wood Kale's mark, the exact same shape that had burned itself into Mara's skin when he first touched her. The last bloodborn, alpha of the old line, she said quietly, tracing the mark. Hidden from the world, hidden even from himself. Mara's heart pounded. Kale,